Hawaii, 1940. The Hawaiian Islands were still a territory. Sugarcane and pineapple production pushed the local economy, and the population had grown by more than 330,000 since the 1840s due to the plantations importing labor from countries around the world, including Japan. For many Nisei, or children born in Hawaii whose parents immigrated from Japan, life was much simpler than it is today, but not always easier.
We had a rather large family, which was common in those days, particularly for the farm life that we led. Anyway, we had 8 of us. I was number 5 in order. Growing up as a child, we used to go to the beach.
Life for me was very simple. We were not rich. We didn't have everything, abundant. I mean, we survived, and it was hard. And I always cherish those days because I think it made me realize that nothing is free. And I think that was one of the things that kept me going.
My father was a merchant. He was a manager of a company that imported goods from Japan. It was called the Japanese Bazaar. So, I grew up as a local kid, Kaimaki district. Those days was good. It was simple life, yeah?
All of that changed on December 7th, 1941.
December 7th, I was out. I got up early in the morning, as I normally do on a Sunday morning. I went out to the Kaiulani school, and I was there, and we were playing football. And I remember all these planes flying overhead and all of that. And we kept looking, and we said, oh, maneuvers. Then when we heard all the ambulance, the sirens, and the fire department people, hustling out, and they told us that this is war, get out.
Well, I was asleep, and I came out, and then you hear all this thunder that never stopped. And that was all the guns from Pearl Harbor shooting at the enemy, Japanese airplanes. And so that constant thunder woke us up. We went out and looked toward Pearl Harbor, and we could see all the, Pearl Harbor was on fire. And so the whole horizon was black with black smoke from the burning battleships, yeah. And then we heard the radio calling soldiers and sailors to report. And then you heard this voice saying, all ROTC cadets from the university report to your armory. So that's when we reported, and we immediately became assigned to become part of the Hawaii Territorial Guard.
The war had come to Hawaii. The bombing of Pearl Harbor lasted no more than 2 hours, yet 2,500 lives were lost that day. And life for the Japanese living in Hawaii and across the United States would never be the same.
It was drastic. You don't know what prejudice is. I mean, overnight it completely changed. And you can see that everybody was angry. It's nationality against nationality. Then after that, when you went out to look for a job, if you're Japanese, no chance. And if you got a job, you had an ID with a black band surrounding your badge to indicate that you're Japanese. And we couldn't enter the port areas and all that. There's so many restrictions. And a lot of the families were broken up. The parents taken to Staten Island, Eva, and all those places. My father was taken to Staten Island. He was a Japanese national. No, he was a Japanese national, and I remember we had Japanese records and Japanese books and all that. We had to burn all of that before the agents came to pick him up, because if they found those documents, we were afraid they may take us into custody.
Because Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese, the United States government put AJAs, Americans of Japanese ancestry, and suspect Germans and Italians into internment camps. AJAs who were soldiers in the Territorial Guard were stripped of their duties.
When finally they picked out all the Nisei from the Territorial Guard and fired us, discharged us because of our ancestry, because our face looked like the enemy. And the higher-ups in Washington, D.C. then issued this edict or ruling that Niseis could only serve in this non-combat limited duty, and I guess the only alternative, or what was left, was the what became the Volunteer Labor Battalion. And it was called Varsity Victory Volunteers because varsity meant university. So we were all university. So there were 169 of us, and all former UH-ROTC cadets.
The Varsity Victory Volunteers dug ditches, built bridges, built warehouses, and helped in any way that they could.
We did that for a year, and finally the government then opened up and said, we will allow these guys to fight. And therefore they call for volunteers for the 442nd. So we all resigned the VVV so that we could volunteer for the Army Armed Service.
The government asked for 1,500 volunteers, but 10,000 AJAs showed up to fight for their country.
But almost every guy that joined the 442 joined because they wanted to prove their loyalty to America.
After all, we're all American citizens, so we joined the army.
I think Shiro Aoki said it very, very well, and in fact my father said that well also, that the idea was you rise above adversity, and when you have an opportunity to put your patriotism first, you do that. If your heart is there, you do that. And I think the message for the 442nd and the 100th and the other units who served as well was you've got to step out sometimes and make those hard decisions when others in the country are looking at you differently. This is an opportunity to change how the country saw Japanese Americans.
Prejudice and conflict didn't only arise between the AJAs and other ethnicities. There were rifts between the Japanese depending where they were from in the United States.
When we first went overseas to the mainland, we joined together with the mainland Japanese. But we were Hawaiians that spoke pidgin English. Those mainland guys spoke perfectly English, and that's why from the very beginning we never got along. We all had fights with the mainland guys all the time. But our story has always been told that once the 442 went over to the relocation camps, and they saw all these Japanese behind barbed wires being guarded by machine guns. Then, after they came back from the relocation centers, we got to be friends with the mainland boys, because the Hawaii guy said if we had our parents behind barbed wire, would we have volunteered for the army? So that was a good thing for the mainland guys and for the 442 anyhow, because we became a unit then.
The soldiers of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Infantry Battalion, and the Military Intelligence Service fought throughout Europe. They fought valiantly for their country and for one another.
We were very close because we all local boys.
I was lucky to be in that battalion because they know what to do, and I just got to follow them.
Though many of the soldiers do have fond memories, they haven't forgotten the horrors of war.
What I remember is our bodies getting killed. That's the bad part.
War is good as well, but we were nothing else that we could do.
World War II ended in 1945, but the war and the choices made by the brave who chose to fight have hugely impacted our local culture and society.
I changed to the extent that I came back with what knowledge I had and where I had age beyond my age. Those of us that survived, we had opportunities that we would never have. As I said, Senator Inoue, Spaki Matsunaga, Yoshinaga, Epable, Akaka, and Haran Fong. I think the war really opened doors, and I don't think any one of us ever dreamt that we would have that kind of opportunity. I had my opportunity.
What the veterans accomplished after the war here is to basically develop the state of Hawaii. So when you really look at it, you know, I've told this to many people that, you know, I wouldn't be where I am today in Hawaii and in the society. I think if it wasn't for my father and all the veterans who went to war and you know, basically came back and helped to shape our state.
I think that they were normal, regular people, just like you and me. But they came into young adulthood at a very unique time in history. And they made choices to help create history. They weren't thinking that at the time. But they, in fact, did change, I think, to some degree, the history, at least part of the history, the wartime history of this country.
Well, the young ones, my kids and grandchildren, haven't the faintest idea. It was tough to be a Japanese during the war because for the longest time, the government and maybe a majority of the citizenship had questions or doubts. Are these guys going to be loyal to America or what? And it was only until, you know, these, let's see, there was a total of 719 killed in action, Niseis killed in action. And, you know, what better proof do you have than give up your life for your country? And so when they began to see all those white crosses with Japanese names, then the country and the people began to say, oh, these guys are part of us. They're dying for their country.